Oh, I know it's like super high on your priority list and everything, but on that, we were doing the changes to the
I would say
policies
you
last
think
week.
we're over half for sure, 75%.
You had to appoint a wellness person for the.
Oh, wait, there's 700, there's more than 350.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you need a volunteer.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, if you
I don't
could
even see
take
it on
into
here.
account
Should I put it
master's
on there?
ambassador, I was assuming,
Seeing it when you're going
because
to
you've
the-
done
I
a
do
lot of
remember that now
masters
that you
too,
say
that's a
that,
lot.
but I would, I want to.
Well, not
I can't
no.
tell you on that.
He also included anybody who's taking a class right now.
Oh, well.
That's what he did.
Oh,
He did-
really?
Yeah.
Okay, all that?
You saw
Okay.
me
And
Yeah.
I think you have donated money to
I was going to try not to bring
pay
it up.
a tuition to 4 days too.
Lance would have been such a good Oktoberfest person to stay there more.
Everybody's back, so my wife wanted that.
It's actually harder to find than beer.
It was.
Yeah,
You
I
didn't
sure
have to
went.
bring it.
I think they were general.
You could have kept it. Actually, considering the way the game was, you probably should have.
And they charged me for it.
Must have been quite a game.
I'd like to see, I remember once in the 90s, that place was sold out, we had a lot of local players.
Yeah, it's exciting. Exciting.
All right.
We are.
Go ahead and call the USD 49 Board of Education meeting for Monday, October 9th to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And I believe we have a change that we need to make to that. John?
Yes, the information on the Fort Hays State University Ellis County Teacher Tuition Assistance for master's degree, that hasn't changed. It's just that we don't have quite the information that we want yet before we present it. So we're going to put it off to the next meeting.
Okay. We will remove that. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda minus the item D under new business.
So moved.
Been moved by Board Member O'Brien. Who seconded that? Sorry. Oh, Waddell. Seconded by Board Member Waddell. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is communications from other organizations. I believe we have a Foundation for Educational Excellence update. All you.
Come over here by Sarah so she can help me out.
Tag team it.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm Curtis Brown. I'm the Vice President for the USD 489 Foundation. And Sarah's has put together, Sarah's on the board as well, and she's put together kind of a slide sheet or here for kind of what we've done recently and what we've done in the past, and an idea of where we're going maybe for the next project will go. And so our mission is stated there on the first slide is to support the Hays Public Schools in their work to maintain a challenging and inspiring educational atmosphere. Also is to involve the alumni, parents, businesses, and other supporters in our school to help in that enhancement of the education. On the slide there, you'll see the board members and the officers, President Roger Bixman and Secretary Karina Beam and Renee Booth as the treasurer. The other members, Lance Bickles on the board, Nikki Mim, Sarah Wassinger, Donna Lubers, and then the two new ones that we've just added, Jeannie Michaelis and Julie Fitzum. They haven't started yet, but soon. So our most recent funding was the crisis kits for every classroom in USD 489. We were able to secure some funding from Sunflower Bank through their ABC program, which sets aside the foundation as one of the beneficiaries. If you got a bank account, you can set it. And so that money has been coming in for probably a couple years, I believe. And so this idea that none of the classrooms, or not every classroom in USD 489 has a crisis kit had come up. And so we used that funding then to prepare book bags for every classroom and an additional bag for each school. So every classroom and every school building has these crisis kits for the students. And so on that is a list of what is in some of the items that are in these crisis kits for natural disasters or any other type of emergency that the teachers and the administrators and the students can access. So
we got those out of our crisis plan as a district, so those are items that are recommended for our crisis plan. TMP is currently writing a grant as well, since we partner together for Hayes Public Schools and Hayes Private Schools. They will hopefully be getting those bags as well, so every student in our accredited schools in Hayes will hopefully have access to the crisis bag, hopefully by the end of this year.
Can I add something? Just clarification, the reason why Sarah ended up saying including TMP, we're together on that crisis planning. Our committee actually includes both the TMP Holy Family and USD 489. We decided that a year ago. It's just so much more efficient when we're working with the emergency response teams that exist in the town. So.
Yeah, and Sarah brought this idea to the foundation about these crisis kits, and so it kind of came together pretty quickly. We had a lot of volunteers that came and helped. We kind of had an assembly line here, and just picking up bags and adding into it. And so basically we had 253 classrooms we put these kits together for, and then there's 6 buildings as well. And so I believe, Sarah, which of the school that had some already?
Early Childhood Connections had previously gotten funding to do their crisis kits. Hayes High and Lincoln as well had some. We noticed that there were some items and kits throughout the district that they weren't really full, what we would consider having all the items that you would want to have students be safe. So we added additional items to some of those bags that were already in place throughout the district.
So every bag's up to date with what it is supposed to have during a crisis, or the supplies that are needed for a crisis. So, and like I said earlier, Sunflower Bank, their ABC program, the funds that the foundation got from that's where we used to fund, or at least the majority of that was used to fund this project.
That's a quick question. Is there a punishment cycle and some of the expirations and things go through? Is that?
So some of the expiration items would be like our granola bars. We have a couple of granola bars and bottles of water. We still haven't decided what that will look like, but we should be good on those items for at least a couple of years. So we need to figure out going forward, I think more on a district level, probably how to maintain those and what we need to do to make sure. I know Russ is here in transportation, they're going to be adding a checklist item to their vehicle checklist. If any items are used in the crisis bags on a trip for school purposes, they're supposed to mark what items are being taken out. That way we know how and what needs to be replenished.
We'll be able to replace everything in 2 years. Nothing's used, but it's good to know there's a plan in place. Thank you.
And so some of the other recent projects that the foundation has worked on, we purchased some security check-in software for the schools where a visitor coming in would have to have their ID run through the system. It does a background check on them to make sure that there's nothing that pops up that would not allow them in the building. This way, then also able to gather some information from those visitors that come in, and then it prints off a badge for them. So we were able to purchase those, and those were from a grant from the Heartland Community Foundation. We've also been funding special milk for elementary students, along with some after-school care for elementary students, and that's kind of those are ongoing projects that we work on. And then another recent one was Big Brothers Big Sisters have been coming in and kind of paying for themselves to eat lunch with their little. And so we decided to pay, if any of the Big Brothers and Big Sisters come in, then we paid for their lunch so they can go see their little. We purchased some instruments for students, and we also purchased these robots that can be programmed. It can be used for kids to program or code some of the technology classrooms. And then we also did purchase a washer and dryer at Wilson, and that was used by the grant we got from the Deji Hansen Foundation. And so there's a list, a big list of other things that we do as far as types of projects that are funded through the foundation. And there's the kind of the next step we want to go into is an inaugural auction to help raise more funds for the foundation. And so we kind of we're in the beginning stages of planning this auction out. We're looking at next fall in 2018 and try to use that, try to find one project where the money would go towards each year. And so I think Sarah's beginning the volunteer list if anybody wants to volunteer for sure. And then we'll also look into the community for items to auction off. So. Some of the other ways that we do get funding, we do apply for grants, but also through Dillon's, their community rewards program. If you got a Dillon's card, you can set the foundation as the beneficiary there. A portion of your purchases that money goes towards the foundation. And that's just easily done on their website. And then also through Amazon, if you buy through Amazon.com, if you go to smile.amazon.com and set your account to benefit the foundation, the 49 Foundation as well, then a portion of of what you purchase also goes back to the foundation. So instead of if those things people use on a daily basis, Dillon's, or they use Amazon, they don't have to make it an additional donation to the foundation. They can do just by purchasing normal items that they normally do.
Well, Christmas coming up, that's the right time of year to sign us up as your beneficiaries.
And then also, I mean, you can make a donation straight to the foundation. That's found on the USD 49 website in the resources tab. That's where you can find the foundation. And then Sarah has started a Facebook page for the foundation as well, so you can follow us on there and get up-to-dates.
I want to say thank you for doing this. It's nice to have a foundation picking up some of those tag-ins that aren't quite budgeted yet. Can make a lot of difference between what the teachers do or, in this case, what would be safe. So kudos to the foundation board and everything you do to help the district.
And we're always looking for other projects as well defense. So if there are teachers out there or other staff members that have needs in their classrooms or at their schools, we encourage you to reach out to the foundation board. And if you have any ideas for the big project that we'll be funding through the auction, depending on how successful that is, we're welcome to ideas for that too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be sure. That's fall of 2018 drill.
It's kind of, that's where we're aiming at.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is school spotlights. John?
Yes, we have a number of them. I'm going to add a couple at the front end. The high school club DECA ends up having their annual treats. On Tuesday, tomorrow, we have the non-perishables that if you put them outside your door, they'll be picking them up from 7 to 9 o'clock, and trying to get that information out. But it's good to mention again. It's a great way to end up helping out in the community. Helping Hands is having their Halloween orders, and Miss Thacker is at the high school is the one to contact for that. Helping Hands has done this before as well. The items that we ended up having, the cheerleaders end up holding a little cheer camp for the youth, and that was preschool clear through 5th grade, and it was great. Ended up having them involved for jumps, cheers, dancing, how to be loud. I don't know if you have to really teach them that, but parents were able to watch the kids, and that was they performed at the football game on September 22nd. So thank the cheer squad for doing that. We ended up having volleyball. Hayes High School volleyball did exceedingly well there. They had at Great Bend, they won 5 consecutive matches, and that was on September 30th at that invitational. It's fantastic what they were able to do there. We ended up having homecoming court was announced. We ended up having Dante Blockman, Aaron Muirhead, London Keller, Trinity Callis, Alan Zollinger, Lisa Schoenberger, Hunter Brown, and Hannah Donaldson, Kyler Voss, and Macy Steckel are going to be the court members. The dance is October 14th, and that'll be at the high school Gym B. We end up having, it's always great when you end up having the support for different projects. This one is our high school electric car program. Western Cooperative Electric, they ended up donating $100. And again, our competition, just if people don't know, we've done extremely well with that competition year after year. They're very generous. The Western Cooperative Electric also donated $150 to the project graduation. So thank you for their generosity. Just got news that ladies golf again did fantastic here in town. Miss Dinkle, Kari Dinkle, she ended up was first, and the team did end up they made it in regionals to go on to state, so they did great today. Just this information, they ended up earning the WAC title. We ended up having Miss Dinkle also honored as the Player of the Year. She was first in the championship overall with a 73, just one stroke over par. Other lady Indian golfers, we ended up having Junior Emily George was third place with 86, and Junior Emily Guire was 10th place with 99. Also, Coach Watts, he ended up winning the title of the Watts Lady Golf Coach of the Year, so fantastic for the golf team. Then they were saying that, again, we end up having the 4A regional, but that turned out very, very good for the team today. Hayes High debate team did very well at Liberal High. Ended up having Joanna Carrillo and Andrew Duke placed first in the novice division. The team also placed second in the sweepstakes, so they did very well. Hope the rest of the season goes well for them. Hayes Middle School cross country, they're doing fantastic as well. The 7th grade girls finished the season undefeated and took home the Western Athletic Conference Championship. Top 10 7th grade girls finished. That was Amelia Yeager, first place. Alia?
Nayeli, I think.
Say-
Nayeli.
Okay, you heard that. And Cisneros was third place. Savannah Lawson, 7th place, and Katrina Dillamont, 10th place. The 8th grade girls finished included Landry Dott, 2nd place, Lainey Hardman, 10th place. Braden Hines finished overall for the 8th grade boys, first overall. They've just done extremely well, and they've been coached by Amy Arnold, Nathan Perdue, and Caden Cunningham. So it's nice to see them succeeding. We ended up having middle school volleyball teams. They also ended up winning the WAC volleyball titles. 8th grade A and B teams, as well as 7th grade A team, all brought home the championship. So
And I think 7th grade B took second, so. all
they got
four of
second,
them,
okay.
yeah.
So then they got 3 firsts and a second,
Yeah.
which fantastic for the middle school. It's great information at the front end of a school year.
Good. Any questions for John on school spotlights? Moving on to the next item is report of the superintendent. Back to John.
Well, one item I want to speak on is really our in-service today, but Shanna was much more intimately involved in putting that together, and I'd like for her to speak on it.
Yeah, well, it was a great day. Worked closely with Fort Hays, the Tiger Teacher Nation. I know Dr. Adams was there representing the college. Worked with Sean Henderson. This is our 3rd annual. This one was bigger than ever. I don't know if we're going to keep getting bigger or what will happen there, but we had over 700 teachers and staff, 9 districts represented. You can see them up there on the screen. So a great day of professional learning. The keynote, Bill Cordes, who grew up in Lakin, he's a nationally known speaker. His message was, yoga whippy, you get out what you put in. So that was a big message for our teachers. Hopefully they got a lot out of today. A lot of the day, well, it was all about what's best for teachers and what do teachers need. There was a planning committee that consisted of teachers in these districts who helped brainstorm the breakout sessions and the afternoon academy. So it was very well planned. I think it went really well. We'll do a survey to get feedback so that we can improve it based on what educators want. So I'm sure Sean Henderson will sleep well tonight. We all will. Always anxious for it. Hayes High was a great host like they always are. It's great to have, there weren't enough bathrooms, I will tell you that, at Hayes High, but we made the best of the facilities there. And Hayes Middle School, we had some teachers over there in the afternoon as well, so it was great to have people out and about. And then this Wednesday is our early release for October. So our afternoons, the middle school and high school will be spending some time with the new accreditation. And then at the elementary level, we're going to spend some time training our teachers on a new reading intervention that we're using through the State Department. It's called iStation. And so we need to spend some time training on that and doing some collaborating. So I know it's some time out for the kids, but it's worth it for the teachers to do some professional learning and collaboration.
You mentioned the picture.
The picture. We took a picture before lunch of the whole group at Hayes High. That was pretty amazing. So I'm sure you'll see some social media. I know at one point, I think the keynote asked who had some connection to Fort Hays, either took a class, graduated, and oh my gosh, about 75% of the crowd stood up. So there were a lot of Fort Hays connections. So it was great.
And one of the comment is, did it help spread our professional learning dollars out by collaborating with them?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a good use of resources. So because when you bring someone in, and we reached out to a lot of KSDE members, and there weren't a lot of big charges there, so we kept budgets in mind. But yeah, it does make a lot of sense to do it regionally and collaborate with other districts.
I think it's great making use of professional learning money, so we'll have more
Right.
opportunities.
Well, and we learn from each other, you know, and
Yeah,
the
well,
sharing of
sure.
learning from each other. So lots of positives. So we wanted to share that.
Great use of
The other item I wish to share was about the, you would have heard on the news, the Supreme Court ruling. And I know it was a big issue in the news a week ago. It's not that, it's one of those lackluster topics in my mind, because all they did was really support it still moving the way it was. They're supporting that there needs to be more study that goes into this, and they gave a date of June 30th that the legislators need to be working on this and have something in place. I do want to point out that I think there's a lot of people who think that it's all about just money, that there's more money. Now that is part of it for public education, but another big piece has to do with equity, making sure that it is an equitable process of divvying out the money. And there's some concern with that, and they did address that. So it ends up being a case where there are districts in the state that just because of where they are and, well, I'll just say because of the wealth or dynamics of that area, they have ability to come up with more money for even public education than elsewhere. And there's some concerns of that to make sure that just because you live in Lakin, Kansas, or you end up living in Russell, Kansas, or wherever it ends up being, it should be the same whether it's eastern Kansas, Kansas City, Wichita, Hays. That's one of the real challenges of trying to make sure that there's equity within that process. So we probably will not know anything until closer to June. Maybe closer to June 30th, really, the way it seems to work. But just an awareness that that's what happened a week and a half ago, and it's just still in that process of moving along.
Good. Any other questions for John? Then we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda, to include the board meeting minutes for September 25th, 2017, the approval of bills in the amount of $2,374,387.43. Personnel transactions, financial reports to include the clerk's report, investment report, and free cash report, and early childhood connections policy council bylaws.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Been moved by Board Member Fox,
Second.
seconded by Board Member Lang. Any further discussion?
So I have a couple of questions. Noticed on the budget report, looked like there are some negative balances coming cash. Trying to get back to it. Was that just revenue that has not come in yet?
I'm sorry,
Yeah, there. General fund, for example. Unencumbered cash balance.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that without checking on it. And Tracy apologized. It was still family get-together with the death in her family is why she's not here. But
I noticed it in a few places. And was
I can find that out and get an answer to all the board members tomorrow.
Okay, I do
Okay.
appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. I just wondered if it's right, but you have to give us an
I was
answer.
going to say there were federal funds maybe revenue, but no, that some of those aren't,
Well,
so.
the general fund's the one that
Right.
Right.
is virtual the most.
Because the others we draw down, but,
I want to make sure it's the right answer.
yeah.
It's okay.
Mm.
And I noticed in the petty cash, we had, the petty cash report, something with roof repair. What was that?
I would almost bet it has to be something like that because it wasn't like that on the last budget report.
No,
They weren't
but
negatives.
It wasn't.
They weren't negatives like
Yeah,
this.
it caught my eye. I go,
Right.
wait. And the adjustment on the general fund of 600,000
Mhm.
or change, so. That, just clarify, just wanted
Sure.
clarification on that.
Okay.
And then I wondered, there was a bill for a roof repair, or was that one?
That was on the Russ's building. We ended up having damage when we had the hail. You know, there was some vehicle damage and there was some roof damage that was involved there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's still on our deductible, not on the insurance now. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda under new business is the Early Childhood Connection Board Training, and I believe Donna Hudson-Hamilton is here to share with us.
Good evening.
You want to give this one?
Thanks.
Sponsored by
Or you can drive.
Okay.
I'll just watch.
Well,
mine.
most of you have been through this before because, again, this is just the annual training that I need to do with the board. So I'll probably just highlight some of the things that are different, and then you can ask me any questions if you need to. Okay. Oh, one. Okay. Again, our mission statements: empowering families to live the possibilities by nurturing children, family, community connections. We still have the prenatal to 3 focus and the 3 to 5 focus. I do want to just kind of point out there's been some name changes in programs. So under prenatal 2-3, instead of called Parents as Teachers now, it's the Kansas Parent Education Program. So they did change the name of that. And then under 3 to 5, instead of the at-risk program, it's now called the Early Learning Kansas program. So both of those are state-funded programs that have changed names. Prenatal to 3, again, that's the Kansas Parent Education Program. It just serves the Hayes District. We're serving approximately 20 families. Another change that's been this year is now that program can serve up to age 5. Actually, that was 3 before. It is still utilizing the Parents as Teachers curriculum, and if you follow along with this, when initially it came out, you just had to have an evidence-based curriculum, but then they went back to statutes when they first developed Parents as Teachers, and it says in the state statutes that they have to use the Parents as Teachers curriculum, so that has been a change back for this year. I don't know if that will stay the same for next year or not. And again, this is state funded with a match from the school district. Early Head Start, again, we're still serving Ellis, Rush, Rooks, and Russell counties. We still have the 30 federal slots, but last year was the first year that our Kansas Early Head Start slots were split out. We actually gained 20 slots, but 15 of them are in what are child care. So some of those are in family child care and some of them are at Munger, and then 50 are home-based through their home-based grant, through a TANF grant. So our service delivery options for 0 to 3 right now, we have our center-based at Munger. That's open 7:30 to 5:30. We have 2 mixed age groups out there. So we serve 16 children out there. Those families also have a monthly visit from the teacher. We do partner with several family child cares. We're currently partnering with 5 different family child cares. And then we have a monthly visit with that family through a family support worker. And then we have our home-based program, which through the, I still got to get used to the name, Kansas Parent Education Program. Those are monthly, can actually now be twice a month visits for 60 minutes if the family needs that. And then our Early Head Start are 90-minute home visits. We also offer play groups for all of those families for socialization. 3 to 5 program. Our Head Start, again, serving Ellis, Rush, Rooks, and Russell. We're serving 123 3 and 4-year-olds. This is, again, federally funded with a local match. The Early Learning Kansas, we are serving 42 children. We went up, we added a couple of children with this year's grant. That's free for any children that are at risk. That's a state grant. Those children are just served in the Hayes School District. And then our Early Childhood Block Grant, we're using this funding to support some of the children to go full day. So we have more children now going full day. And then we also have some additional home-based slots to serve some of the outlying counties. This funding is through the Children's Cabinet, through the tobacco settlement dollars. So the options we have for service delivery for the 3 to 5-year-olds is we still have our half-day sessions. We have the half-day sessions at Washington and at Russell. So there's 2 sessions at Russell, 5 at Washington, and then we also then have our partnering site at Ellis, which we have 2 sites at Ellis. At Ellis, we partner with the school there in that we have some children that are enrolled in Early Childhood Connections and some children that are for pay through their school district. Again, morning and afternoon sessions, 8 to 11:30, 12 to 3:30, Monday through Thursday. And now our full day sessions, this is the first year for full day sessions. We have 3 sessions at Washington. They're running 8 to 3:30, Monday through Thursday. And then our home-based services, again, 90-minute weekly visits with weekly play groups. That's kind of a quick overview about the program and what's offering. Any questions about that?
So do you see any benefits to the full-day session at this point?
You know, I have been really pleasantly surprised. The kids have done really well. They're getting into a good routine. We've seen more time with them. It's going very, very well. And so we've done some changing in staffing, and so we have a bit more staff in there, and it's working well. It'll be interesting to kind of see the outcomes once we do some of our checkpoints on data collection and see if it's making any difference there. But overall, I think it's been, of course we had more requests than what we could accommodate for that option, but I think it's been very helpful. We hardly have any children gone out of those sessions. Nobody's leaving those sessions. I mean, attendance is good.
Looking forward to hear that.
So program governance, that's what I needed to come and visit with you about. Again, you have the general oversight of the Head Start program, both the management and the physical pieces of that, the oversight of the policies and procedures, and it is a shared decision making with Policy Council. But there are certain things that I always must bring here. So I just, you know, the structure of Head Start comes from Department of Health and Human Services down to the Administration for Children and Families, to the Office of Head Start, and then we have a regional office, and then to local grantee. It does not have any state ties. And then locally, you know, USD 49 is the grantee for the grant. The school district is the governing body. Shanna is executive director, and myself is the director. It's kind of a three, I like to explain this a little bit, that, especially to Policy Council. So the governing body has all the control over all the general responsibilities. Policy Council has to approve or disapprove it and then submit it to the school district. You know, we have to have a Policy Council in Head Start that's comprised primarily of parents. So they do meet prior to bringing things here, actions. And then the staff have the operating responsibility. In the new requirements, performance standards were just, have been out not quite a year yet, the new performance standards. You know, we're required to make sure that you get monthly financial statements, which you do, monthly program information from summaries, that's my director's report, which always includes the CACFP section, which is just the meals and snacks that are provided. And then the financial audit, when we do our annual self-assessment, community assessment, I share those. And any communication from the Secretary of Health and Human Services or the Office of Head Start, and I always put those with my director's report. And then our program information report, which is done yearly. Once I get the results of that, then I will include those as well. Things that will be coming through for you to be involved in or approved is establishing procedures and criteria for recruiting, selecting, and enrolling the children, and that is our priority grid, how we use a point system, so we place the families with the most needs first. Also, any procedures for selecting Policy Council members, and we had just updated the bylaws. You had approved those tonight. Establishing and adopting conduct, how we go through complaints, and how that procedure would take place, and reviewing all the applications for funding. So it kind of goes into things that require your approval: the self-assessment, financial audit, programs progress in carrying out the grant, and that's always in my grant applications. Any policies or procedures, policies and procedures for hiring the executive director, chief financial officer, and then results for mini monitoring. So currently, we are in a 5-year grant cycle. We're currently in our 3rd year. I said last year was the new performance standards just come out, and I do have like multiple copies of this if anybody would like these. But in that it says that the governing body would help develop the program goals. That's why I want to kind of just let you know we're already set for our 5-year goals. So we're in the 3rd year looking at them now. But the goals are related to education, health, nutrition, and family and community engagement. And again, if you're interested in seeing the goals or anything, I can have Sarah upload those. And then it also connects to the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes framework. We are scheduled for a monitoring review this year. They have changed the review process since they updated performance standards. So this will be a whole new process. So we'll see how it goes. They're actually, they call it a Focus Area 1 review and then a Focus Area 2 review. Because we're already in our 3rd year and we haven't had a review, they're skipping us right to the Focus Area 2. So we'll be getting notice about 60 days before that is to occur. So just was on a webinar last week. They're having another webinar tomorrow, so learning more about that process. We also will, during the review, they'll be coming out and doing a class assessment on it, which is it's a tool they use to look at child-teacher interactions. And so there's a score there's a score that you must reach, or they take the bottom 10% and put them in recompetition. So that isn't something that will come back out. I also just wanted to share, they do have a website, ECKLC. It's that has a lot of all the Head Start information on it, government's toolkits, anything like that that you might want to look at. The other piece of training is that I needed to go through is how we determine, verify, and document that children are eligible. And so when we're looking at enrolling a child, the two primary areas that we have to verify is their age. So we do ask for a birth certificate, birth letter. If we can't get to either of those, if they're on the immunization website, we can utilize that as verification of age. And then the other one is verification of income. So we use tax forms, pay stubs, other proof of income. We do also conduct an in-person interview with each of the families to review these verifications, make sure that they're eligible. We also do training, anybody that's doing this, on how to treat the families with dignity and respect, dealing with any possible issues that they might be dealing with in regards to like domestic violence, any of those things. So we do conduct those in privacy and train the staff on how to deal with that. Also, we are in the process of updating all of our policies and procedures to match the new performance standards. But in our policies is a policy against what would happen if you intentionally provide false information regarding the family and their income, anything like that would occur. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
I can make a statement
Thank
for you as well, Donna. The board members need to know that although with our goals, clearly what she's talked on would be goal A, it's elevating the standard of quality education. But you need to know that with KISA, with the state, they have really pushed very hard that pre-kindergarten preparation. They truly believe that there has to be more emphasis in trying to prepare students that they're ready to enter kindergarten. Now that's interesting because we're not funded really for that, and it's interesting as far as what would be our responsibility in doing that. So it is a big item as far as across the state, trying to figure out what can we do to make that a stronger educational opportunities for children so they are prepared for that entrance in kindergarten. I do not believe a lot of people completely appreciate the range of ability level that exists when you're talking about kindergartners coming in. We do have children that for whatever reason are still working on being potty trained. We have children who can still be acting or have skills that are much akin to a second grader, even they're just a kindergartner. There is such a range that it is very challenging really is very challenging for kindergarten teachers to end up working with that and start the process of their 13 years in public schools.
Are you full, or do you have any vacancies that you want to
We do have a few openings in our prenatal to 3 home-based program. I think last I checked, we have 6.
Question before but we have this whole bond issue. How would passing the bond issue help enhance your program?
Well, just moving the space alone, because you can't have preschool children up on the 2nd floor of the building. So having that space alone would enhance our ability to expand and grow and be more appropriate for that age of children. having right-sized classrooms. We have some classrooms where we have, 12 children in a smaller space without a closed bathroom and things like that that are very handy. Some of the classrooms that do have bathrooms are not conducive to actually helping support children in toilet training because they're very small to fit anybody in, and so there's just lots of possibilities.
Did you say it allows some expansion for the number of
Yeah.
children served?
Yeah, with the new performance standards, we are to become, within 5 years, 100% full day, full school year. So at this point, where we're at now would not allow us to do that at that location.
And this would then support our kindergarten readiness that which I know is part of the facility.
And the other part is Head Start has constraints placed on it as far as they have to qualify to be part of that. So it's not as if it's, if there's more, we can end up taking whoever wants. They really, there's limits on that part. Yes, there's definitely a lot of talk and thoughts as to how do we pursue that further. Head Start is a federal program, but are there any possibilities of some state programs that could have more money in it that could provide more? Because we end up having, again, now I forget what the number, 20 that's part of state program?
42.
42 that is state-funded students. I don't know if, we were with hopes there was going to be some increase on that, but the increase ended up being 2 for this year. So
Which
it
I was a
didn't,
little concerned because for a while we were
Yeah.
going backwards. Right? Yeah.
That would
Well,
help fulfill a need in our community.
Yes,
The additional space.
and it puts all your resources together, because
Yes.
Munger would no longer, you would
No,
have
yes.
everyone birth
We
through
would have
5.
birth to 5 there, so we wouldn't be supporting 2 buildings, which would be helpful.
Better use of staff time.
Better use of staff, better use of funding resources with paying for utilities and, all of those things, custodians, utilities.
Okay, well, thanks, I need to put you on the spot.
Okay.
thank you,
And
Don.
I would like to invite you, we are having Go Truck Go Thursday night, 5 to 7. If you want to come see some big trucks, machinery, race cars, monster trucks, come on by.
At the Washington location, right?
Uh-huh.
Right there.
Yeah, it'll be at the Armory and at the,
Yeah.
Throw some playground.
at the Armory and at the NCK Votech.
Parking lot
Parking
there.
lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good deal.
Thank you for your dedication, Donna, for continually maintaining one of the top programs in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just love the name, Go Trucks Go. You had me back.
Next item on the agenda is the transportation purchase, and I believe Russ is here to give us some updates on that.
I'll bring some more.
Good evening. Each fall, I come to the board and ask for purchase some new vehicles to upgrade our aging fleet. And it's been about 4 years ago, the board asked me to put together a 5-year plan. At the point, we set aside $304,000 each year to start that upgrade, and it's a continuing thing we've been doing for 4 years, and I think it's been working out very nicely. So what I'm looking for this year, looking to purchase 3 Suburbans and a couple route buses for $298,518.75, which is a little over $5,000 under budget. Again, all pricing for the Suburbans is the Kansas State vehicle pricing we get through the state, and also with that, the bus is a contract bid through the state, so we don't have to go out and get bids. It's all on a computer, all through a package. So what I'm looking for on the left side, Kansas Truck was $92,000, Midwest Bus was $95,000, and Midwest Trans was $90,000. So I am requesting the lowest bid bus there also this year. So any questions on that page?
Those route buses, you have two of them on there, are those just replacement for current route buses that we have now?
Correct, yeah, just
Okay.
replacing 2 current route buses we have now.
Okay.
Yes.
How many routes are we running now?
We got 8 regular routes, 3 special needs routes. We run a couple Head Start routes.
Where does that compare to where we were, back when we had started this whole discussion 4 years ago?
Yeah, when we did the 2.5 mile, we shut down 4 routes at that time, 4 employees. We're less 4 employees since that time, at that point in time. Since that time, I've lost another 3 substitute drivers.
Have any routes been added since that time?
No, we have
Still the
not
same?
added any routes. So,
I think you told us last year, but what do you do with the old vehicles? Are they auctioned? Is that
yes,
right?
they go on Purple Wave as an auction. It's a multi-state auction that goes out there. It's out there for a month, and they bid on it, and then they just, the buyer pays the premium, and then they just send us a check for it. So it's a great system to use. I don't think we could find any better way of doing it. I think the state wants us to use that system too, so. Okay, next page.
Sorry, that's me.
This page is part of the 5-year plan. It just kind of projects out what we're looking at the top, what we're looking for Suburbans or cars. And on the bottom side is what we're looking for route buses or, 2 route buses this year, but next year we'll probably looking at an activity bus, route bus, and each year kind of what we're projected to purchase at that time. So like I say, we're in our 4th year of our 5-year plan. The $304,000 right now has been covering, our needs that we need per year. It's always nice to have more, but we are getting by and we are able to update our fleet with that. So each year there is price increases on vehicles and with buses and stuff. So but right now, we are doing okay with that. So next page. This one here is just a sheet that has all of our vehicles we mainly use at transportation office. The top part, what we use for out-of-town vehicles, mainly all the Suburbans are used for in-service. Golf and tennis use them instead of busing for the amount of kids they take. The next bottom group after that is some vehicles we use just in town for work studies and running kids from school to school. Underneath that's a blue section. That's our 3 cars that a lot of people use for in-service teachers. And so if we don't have a lot, we can put them in cars instead of Suburbans. And the very bottom part is some, we got Durango freight maintenance. We have a mail van that we run around specifically for that. High school's got a car they use for their events. So this is just a snapshot of what we use with all the vehicles at our location. Now there's another 15 some vehicles that are not on that list, like the maintenance pickups that they use. Early childhood connections, they have several vehicles, but that's not part of this. They buy their own vehicles, so that's not on this list here. So like I said, there's 15 some more vehicles in the district, just not on this list. So next slide, please. This list is with all the buses that we put out each year. The left says retirement year. The state says we can have a route bus or a school activity bus for 25 years. So that's why there's a retirement year there, just so we don't go over that. Just follow across the right. It talks about what type of bus it is. It says capacity. Capacity means that's 3 kids per seat, which is impossible in a lot of cases. But that's what the capacity is, and the year manufactured, and just our bus number. And in the very right, that was our current mileage of that bus at the beginning of the school year. So it just kind of gives you a snapshot of all the buses that we have, what they're used for.
There's been talk about seatbelt implementation. Has there been a final ruling on that?
No, there's been a lot of talk, state and especially national. The seats and buses are built to not have seat belts. The seats are very high. They're close together, so if there is a crash, they're meant to crash into the seat in front of them. If you put seat belts on a bus, you're probably looking around $10,000 extra to do that. So at this point,
Per bus?
per bus, yeah. What the national people said, and they want to have the state help pay for that each, because it put a burden on the district, buy a lot of buses. So, they're built for safety, and then they are safe, they're safest transportation on the road. So, but at this point, there's a lot of talk, but still nothing in the near future that's going to change.
There are a few states that have made that a
Yes.
requirement.
Texas
is,
yeah.
but not too many.
Yeah, just a few out there. That's all the slides I have, so any other questions I can answer tonight? So in 2 weeks when I come back, if we can make action on it, because November 1st, there's new pricing goes into effect, so if we can pass it the next board meeting, that gives me a few days to get it processed and everything before the new pricing go into effect, so. And it's good for another year, so at that point.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the board goals updates. John?
Starting the new year and taking a look at it again, Sarah ended up assisting greatly in going into our board minutes and pulling out different pieces that's been done recently that ties to our goals. One goal that you end up having in particular, which is the ratio of teacher to student, it's a hard one to end up tending to, so that's the one that you can expect to see very few notations on. It's going to have to do with classroom space, hiring more teachers. Clearly, I'm just pointing that out because it ends up identifying in November of 16, we did talk about it having the, what we just had here, the early childhood connections, federal Head Start. You know, we were addressing that in some of the conversation with it. The other was a matter of, in January of 17, employing services of a demographer to really look at what the future enrollment's going to be, trying to make sure we can take that information and plan ahead on into the future. But other than that, you're not going to see much in that area. With others, well, I'm sorry, anytime we're talking about our bond, definitely the bond election would address it as well. I'm sorry, the idea of having extra classrooms in the elementary would end up succeeding in taking an average of 23 students per classroom to closer to 19 or 20, and that's really what we're trying to do. But on the other objectives, we end up having I'll go to the most recent, some of the things just at the beginning of this year that we started talking on, and that would be into July, let's say. In July, we ended up having, really you can identify in every area with July of having training on best practices, Marie Henderson providing the trainings, have the bond election that's tied into that we talked about the LED upgrades for the high school. Clearly that's part of one of the goals that we have. And then the other, we ended up having a third of Victory Road was replaced by USD 489. We're trying to end up addressing this as we go along so that it's viewed that none of it is being forgotten, that the goals are actually being studied, and we try to end up addressing them when it's appropriate, you know, as we go through time. Don't need to necessarily go through each one of the months and identify what was done with the board meetings, but I guess I would end up throwing it your direction to ask questions on any one of it. So much of it has to do with timing. Even our capital outlay piece, we kind of got to a capital outlay part where we ended up hiring, but we never did provide a contract. And agree, it makes sense, because clearly how they would continue to move on this would depend greatly upon how a bond election would pass. If it would pass, it would change what they would actually need to end up identifying in the prioritization and work from. So we are on a hold with it, and probably other than talking about the high school's heating and air system for this next summer, other than it, there's not a lot to talk about. Now, Rusty would like to, but it's still a matter of saying we need to wait and see, and then we'd really have direction as to what that prioritization would end up being at that point. So I would picture November, December will give us really much direction on that particular goal.
Reviewing through here, it looks like there's somewhere between 19 and 30 actions on goals A, B, C, and D. Well, on E, provide appropriate, it's got a couple that are asterisks that are related to the bond issue, but really only one action. Is this an area that you feel comfortable with? And I'm looking, I see it down in April of 17, we looked at more by hiring teachers, and then 2 asterisks that are related more to, well, one to Head Start, federal, and then the demographer. So is this an area that we need to put more attention to, because we haven't done a lot with?
You mean with the ratio?
Yeah.
What I was trying to say with that was just that it's hard to address that without the space.
Okay.
You know, and at this particular time, if you're really trying to end up, I know we're committed to that, but you have to have more classrooms to end up putting the students in. Then you have to end up having the finance to then hire more teachers to also fill out the plan. Does account for that. I mean, there'd be 8 other classrooms in the elementary, and if the bond election would pass. But trying to end up doing it any other way, just like Donna last year, if you remember her presentation, she was actually presenting this with the thought that maybe she'd have to use more space in Munger for some classrooms. And that was an issue of saying, wait, you know, that's not really the direction we want to go, is having to use more space in another town, which already we have parents that are driving the kids there and actually dropping them off. So,
and probably one we do need to add, while that you brought that up, is in July we added classroom aides. So we're not adding additional classrooms, but we have added a classroom aide at 3 of the elementaries.
right.
Lincoln, which has the most at-risk population, we actually have added 2. Those are classified positions, but it's another adult in those K2 rooms that can be floated and work with kids in a small group or help assist those teachers. So we will want to add that, because that was something we felt did make sense and we could do to help support the teachers.
Are there other questions with any of the other goals that were set? I am telling you that the goals are very appropriate. I am glad that the board stayed with them going into this year. I do make a prediction for the board going into this next summer, though. I predict they will change. Okay, having them 2 years, the reason why I predict that is because we are in the process of our KISA, of identifying goals for buildings and at a district level, and we'll have those identified within just a few months. Now, those goals are goals that we're using our perception surveys, we're using our ACT scores, we're using other data that we're trying to identify what should we be working on. What are the things that we should be improving over the next 4 to 5 years? And those are items that you'll need to be looking at as a board to identify as well, saying, okay, maybe we have succeeded or managed enough of these 5 goals. Maybe one of them or 2 of them could actually stand alone without having to be listed, and we bring in another goal or 2 that's part of this improvement process. That's why I'm saying I predict that there would be some change this coming summer.
Just a question here. September 17 goal, CT. Should that also include TMT Holy Family as a list of collaborating institutions for the in-service? Because you mentioned it's a community, but I think it's an important note that it incorporated all institutions in this, all public funded institutions in the city.
I agree. Yeah, we will update that.
It was good. And then just something, question, maybe something to think about or do is that I read in the KSB today, about McPherson moving forward more with PBL as both a Mercury school and an innovative school. What's, and talking with some teachers who are at Mercury, this is with the Kansas Moonshot Project. You're not sure what I'm talking about. The passion of
Kansas
Commissioner
Can,
Wilson.
New Vision,
The Kansas Can Reach Center. But PBL seems to be coming up a great deal more. I was surprised to see it come up, and Gemini school teacher contacted me and said, what do you know about, what can you help us out with PBL? Are we going to begin to look at that as a pedagogical model more as we look at improving? Elevate is actually probably more related to goal A within the PISA and the Kansas Can.
I would say it will depend on what our results show us from the perception survey and then the needs assessment. And then when we are working with Smoky Hill, you remember we're working with Geary County, Salina Junction, well, that is Geary County, Emporia, and Great Bend. And those are the types of things, some of those evidence-based best practices we'll bring to those groups.
Okay.
And we'll ask, what are they doing? What do we see? Is it a need for our district? So that is a topic that has come up. So I think as we progress into this KISA model, I don't know if you have other thoughts, John, that will be based on a need and some best practice out there that they would encourage us to look at.
I know it's one of the core of the Kansas Can.
The application, those schools that applied.
Yeah.
And I think really we'll learn a lot from them too. It'll be exciting to see their process.
And I did read that article about McPherson and what they're doing. They had a list of the things that they identified they were doing that makes them, and I read that and I was thinking, okay, so are we. I read that and felt very comfortable that we're very much on the same page of what they're working with at this point.
And I would agree. They had talked about the kindergarten readiness.
Yes, they did.
School and social and emotional health issues that we've been doing. So.
And we did have that first meeting 2 weeks ago. I can assure you that the conversations talking to Great Bend and Emporia and Salina and Geary County, it was very satisfying knowing what they're sharing and my own past knowledge, or just knowing what those districts have in place with some of their programs compared to what Hayes has. We are doing very well. Okay, it ends up being, and the question ends up being a matter of where are we in the process? Well, the comfort level, I believe, in trying to work with KISA and our evaluation process, even though we're identifying ourselves at the first year of 5 years, I truly believe that we are very solid in what our plan is of improvement and where we're starting at as well, compared to many of the other schools. So something as simple as a conversation with boundaries of elementaries. Other school districts that do have boundaries and the challenges that exist with those boundaries versus Hayes that has open enrollment. And listening again to the issues of both, again, the satisfaction of, whenever that happened 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I think it was very good for Hayes that it went that way. I did not like hearing the problems that some other districts have with the boundaries. Yeah.
I just want to point out our social emotional piece. And when I go to the state level meeting, one thing that I hear a lot about collaboration with mental health. And if you look at West Side, that's a role model for the state. Okay. You don't see this kind of collaboration anywhere in the state, where you have this many mental health people coming into school and serving kids. This is only one, I would say, in the state. And whoever I talk to, And I have seen that in Wellington. You have one or two or none mental health worker coming in. Here, KBC, the other resource that we have. So, I think we are very fortunate, and with foundation in place, with trauma-informed care in place, I think we are moving in that direction. And we will be the leader. We won't be at the bottom. We are at the top.
We just don't have a PR big person to toot our horn, but we,
Yeah.
we just plug away.
There is post
There you go, yeah.
Yeah.
also, in case the commissioners listen.
Yeah.
We need a
Is that
PR
it?
firm.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Moving on to old business. We have the bond issue update.
It's really quite amazing that we are already on October 9th, and October 17th is the last date that people can get registered to vote. So at one point we were saying that it looked like it was way out there in the future, and now we're just a week or two away from that actually being. And then when you talk about the election itself, it's less than a month away of having the election. So when I end up talking about the update, there are a few board members that have been have been able to be involved with our evening tours, of a couple buildings, and we've had public come in, tour the buildings, many questions with that. There have been quite a number of presentations that even that I have been able to go to. Shanna's been able to participate. Sarah has been able to participate in talking about, just describing what the project is. It is interesting that even at this particular point in time, I think it was just a week ago of a question that really kind of slapped me, with someone saying, so this one's really, is it different than the first one? And so even a question such as that, of saying, yeah, it's really completely different. It's that $94 million project versus this 78.5 really looks and was designed completely different. So those are the things that I know we still, it's important to get out, and there's several more this week, and there's still those presentations that's going to be made. Go Truck Go, going to be present there, to talk if individuals want to talk there as well. It's more a matter, I think, my example I gave was just a matter of information so they know what it is. It's one of those, and it's also a matter of the information of saying, please just vote. Just we want as many people out to vote as possible, but along with that, we'd love for them to truly understand what the project is. I would hate to see that there's individuals going out and voting for this, thinking that it was really just the same one, basically being redesigned a little bit and basically trying it over again, because it truly is much different than the first bond that was put
And
together.
the questions are great. Even, one of the things at Wilson we had the sketch, and it's not even an actual drawing, it's just a rendering, doesn't show a Wilson pool. Well, that was huge for people. The Wilson pool is staying there. So I just encourage anyone who might make an assumption or think to call and ask or check the USD 49 website. We keep that up to date when questions. So as long as people are informed, and then yes, go vote, I think that's all we really ask, and hopefully we can help assist them with at least sharing the information, or clearing up assumptions.
We'll say like since I was out of high school today, like those little placards that here's where the auditorium will be.
All right.
I thought that was telling to help visualize where that would happen at. So people have to go like see where to put those signs. Why.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the bond? Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is a negotiations update.
Negotiations, we did have a meeting again last week. That would have been the third. In those meetings, we've been able to go through actually a pretty good process of working with our consultant from Gallagher. When I say that, I'm saying that even prior to us starting the 3 meetings, there was a couple requests that were made. One was that our Quest services for any tests, blood tests and that, they wanted that to exist in this plan as well. Even before we started the technical negotiations with that, he was able to contact and make that arrangements, and that happened. Another item that happened even before was the prescription plan for the first plan. They were asking that it mirrored, that it be the same as what Blue Cross Blue Shield had, because they thought that was a good prescription drug plan. So basically, they mirrored it. They did, and that was actually before we started the actual specific meetings, for this. So those were 2 that happened prior to. Afterwards, then High Plains Mental Health was brought up because they weren't included in that, and they will be. The dependent care plans will not be higher than last year, so that was one of the concerns. Will those that have dependent care plans have to pay more going into this year? They will not. It's the same. The retiree plans, they increased tremendously last year. I don't know if you remember, but I think it was like a $300 increase they were paying because the state had them as a different category, and really quite, in this particular case, they're going to be paying quite a bit less with this particular plan. And then it rolled into one of the last meeting, the second meeting, of really feeling that one of the biggest issues between the first plan and the second plan was the prescription drugs. And because of that, they liked the prescription drug plan for 1, but 2 needed to end up being the same. And actually, it was nice that within a week of work, Mike was able to bring back not just 2 had the same, but 3 did. So 1, 2, and 3 actually have the same prescription drug plan at this time, which
At no additional cost.
yeah, there was that was it was not an additional cost. So. The other piece, an insurance committee, we've already been talking about that and having it constructed and start, hopefully even this month was the plan to have our first meeting with it. The wellness plan, another concern, a really great concern that existed with the wellness plan had to be when they switched it this last year to include spouses. The issue is you'd pay $20 more per month if you didn't get your 40 points tied to your wellness plan, and your spouse now has to be part of that too, and it was getting a bit concerning, well, with this change, the wellness plan is not going to include the spouses. There's not a point system. There's a couple of items that's required, though. You either have to have the doctor's appointment, the annual doctor's appointment, or a biometric screening, one of those. And the other is you have to have the use or non-use of tobacco form that's filled out. And it doesn't matter if you do use or don't use, just matter that it's filled out and turned in. So if they do those 2 things, then they are going to, they qualify for that, and they're not going to end up having that extra $20 charge per month for that insurance. That's how we're starting. Now, wellness plan 2, which was talked about, was we are going to take the student wellness plan and the teacher wellness committee and put the committees together, really try to have one, and go into this first year that way. If it's too complicated, if there's too many issues that will not work, we will split it at the end of the year. But at this point, we know of some other districts that have one, and there's enough things that work together. We're going to try it with one.
Well, and even our wellness committee last year started talking about helping people understand their points and getting into the portal. So we took some of that on. So I think with the resource, the gal from Gallagher, and who are working with other districts. They'll bring a lot, so I'm excited for that. And if we need to have subcommittees to focus on different things, we can, but it'll be good.
I think too, the other thing is we also have a say-so in it.
Yeah.
As far as how the wellness program goes, and that committee will be able to steer and do that, which we didn't have before.
Right, and we'll have representatives from all buildings so we can get feedback from everybody, so it'll be good.
The nice piece that happened with changing the prescription drug part ends up making it that really that Plan 2 ends up probably, well, maybe just as much Plan 3. Plan 2 and 3 is going to be much more desirable from the standpoint of individuals who are relatively healthy. The nice piece of this is there's not that copay part of it. The understanding that the big difference between the Blue Cross Blue Shield and the Aetna ends up being that out-of-pocket is much less with Aetna. Blue Cross Blue Shield addresses a smaller deductible. There's a higher deductible, but there's not that 80-20 pay. You know, you don't have that with Aetna. You end up hitting that particular deductible, and that's all you're going to pay. That's the total out of pocket. So it ends up being created so that the Plan 1 is going to be the plan that only individuals who really have the poor health, or that they plan on they know they're going to have an operation going into the next year, that would be probably the plan that those individuals would end up selecting. That's how it's designed. It's designed for Plan 1 to be more so for that. If you pick Plan 2, Plan 2 ends up being the one that is paid for the single, okay? And then Plan 3, there's still some savings there, but that $30-some savings of going can end up being dedicated towards other benefits, such as a cancer plan or a major or medical
Leave.
So you can end up tying it to, so it in essence still ends up saving the out-of-pocket that you'd be paying for it as well. There is an HSA plan too. That's the fourth one. So going to this, there's really quite an education piece of it that's going to be very challenging in that one-to-one meeting, trying to end up finding out what's going to be best for every individual this particular year. You know, when signing them up, it's going to be a real challenge for people to think about it instead of maybe the way it's been done in the past of saying, I just want what we had last year. You know, and it's not a matter of just the ease of not having to think about it. It's a matter of, at this point, if they really do study it, they can save. I mean, there can really be a year-to-year process of looking at this where they can really end up making some good decisions, and it could save them money, the employees at this point.
So they, got my date today, they still need to be finished signing up for Plan B.
Yeah, our timeline is really horrible. You know, it's been pushed back. It was supposed to really be even at the front end of October. Yeah, we sign up in October, so we are at a crunch time, truly, of needing to even have informational meetings next week, and probably the one-on-one meetings the week after. You know, we were planning the first week in October, then we're planning this week, and now we're planning next week, and I don't think we can't push it back any further. We're there at this point.
And there's no deviance to that we can ask for an extra week or two for people to finish their sign up? Because I'm looking at the time, and I know usually it's 10:01, 10:31. and that
My understanding is no. My understanding is we've done that. We've pushed it to that point. We would be enrolling in the last week of October.
Right.
Yeah. So
People have to look at the materials that have been sent out and
right.
make a choice. Okay.
So it's more a matter that the three meetings Actually, I think we're very advantageous. I mean, the list of things that was able to be gained by that dialogue and the work on it was fantastic. At this point, to have this particular plan, if there is I would not say, there is not what you'd say a tentative agreement that exists between the teachers and the board group, because at this point, although the details may have been tended to, there is a desire to have Plan 1, whereas what we're offering or what we're proposing is Plan 2. And so that's the issue at this point as far as that part. Describing this to the board at this point so you understand where we're at, at this time. It probably is not. Actually, we did the same thing with the custodial group, if you remember. We ended up voting on that before the custodial group did. So it's a similar situation at this point, and we can. That's up to you at this point if you wish to go ahead and move tonight, if that's your agreement. I know Lance has been present at every meeting. Mandy has been to several of them. But at this point, what is the worst case scenario is not having insurance. We have to have insurance.
Or being locked into insurance that people really don't want. I think if the state plan right now, if we don't choose, we get locked into one that's not very desirable for individuals that are.
The state plan's gone.
No, we
Yes,
get locked,
yes.
And I'm worried that we would lock people out of their choices if we don't move down. That's what, yeah. No, I know that. This actually sounds better. I'm like, gee, maybe I should.
That's
It
does
really.
sound better anyways.
Actually, I've been part of a process like this before, but never to the degree of the amount of work that I perceive Mike Howell has done on behalf of USD 489. He has represented Gallagher in a fantastic way, I think, in making this work, and the plan that's being offered to us is really excellent. It's a very good plan.
And they have a team of people, I have no doubt, that will work as hard and quickly, because we are on a short timeline, to help people make these decisions. They're not going to be on their own. That's another benefit, is to have someone helping to explain and answer questions.
That was my question, is do we have a team ready for that? Because we do have a lot of employees. Sitting down with them and making sure they understand this is probably as just as important as everything else we're discussing.
The educational piece will come as part of that with the presentations and then setting down with all of them. I know Mike has said they have a team of people that will be doing that.
Tentatively, what's planned this afternoon, Mike was on the phone. Tracy, Amy, and I met and talked about this. But tentatively, the plan would be that the 16th and 17th, next Monday, Tuesday, that there would be meetings that would be arranged that are, informational meetings. Not sign-up meetings, but informational meetings.
About the plan.
About the plan and a booklet, and give all the information. What should have been done 2 months ago, typically would already be put together 2 months ago. And then the following week, there would be 3 days, and that's parent-teacher conference week. That's just horrible, the timing. But that's the week of the 23rd, and that's when there'd be 3 days that they would have 4 employees here for 3 days from 8 or 9 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, of having these schedule of one-to-one meetings with all employees is what's planned. That's the last week in October. So we would be actually enrolling the very timeline.
Online enrollment for them to do.
Well, the issue there is, because of the changes, really wanted to do the one-on-one conversations with it.
So it'll be a paper form.
Yeah, and then it'd be enrolled, it's paper form because of our late date. That's the reason why it's being done this. This is not how it should be done, but it'd be done on paper form for the enrollment, and then it'd be transferred into computer after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said what's left to be negotiated?
Well, the issue here ends up being, we are to negotiate the details of insurance. And we've had the 3 meetings, and there's been great gain that came from it as far as the things that were listed. The only issue that we're at is what I had said. There is a desire of the teacher group to have Plan 1, and what's being offered is Plan 2. And when you say that's where we're at this point. Details, I think no, I don't say think. I know we've addressed all the details. We're just at that particular point.
Suggesting we entertain a motion.
I'm saying you can, much like you did even with the custodial. You know, to end up giving the message that this is it. This is what's being offered at this point is certainly your option to do. If you don't, the next meeting is 2 weeks from now.
We've got to get moving.
So, President Bickle, your take on this?
I echo what John said. I mean, going through this, I mean, like I said, we're just at a point where I feel as far as from, as John said, with the consultant and that, I mean, he's come back, everything that they've asked about, they've been able to come back and add to or address those. So I feel it's been, from that aspect, has been more than fair, has been able to come back and address different questions and things like that. Now it just comes down to, like I said, we're offering 2, which is what we've said kind of from the beginning. If anything, I think that they've continued to make option 2 even better along the way by adding the prescription drug stuff and things like that to it that were not part of it originally, and keeping it at the same cost. So
that's impressive to me.
Yeah.
Because prescription costs not in the money-making side of the business.
So at the end of the day, it's the exact same plan, the prescription drug plan they have now, which I believe all of them are pretty happy with. Yes. So
And what's really different about this plan is when you have 4 different plans that I have had conversation the last week with employees that one of them was asking about the HSA because they want that. One was saying they want 3. They already know they want 3. You know, I've had one that was worried about just knowing how much money what next year's going to, because they have an operation and they know they have an operation. Well, we already know they should pick 1. Now I know that there's more cost out of pocket, which could be about $800 out of pocket for that. But if you figure it with the tie of how much out of pocket of those, it's still savings. I mean,
even at the $800 out of pocket, it's still less than what they would pay total on the plan they're at now. Yeah. So, I mean,
Is that what 800 a year? Right?
Correct, for the entire year.
So what's the motion here?
well, I didn't make a motion.
If
No,
some-
but what is,
It's to make a motion. I think it's to make a motion for plan
to move forward with the district providing Plan 2, I believe.
and the
And
plan 1, 2, 3, 4 with plan 2 being the district provided plan. So that's the motion.
well, it is what was shared with you on Friday. I think all of you had gotten those documents on Friday. It had all of it in there.
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion. Motion that the district, I guess, approve that we have the 4-plan option with plan 2 being the district provided for
Single.
For single.
Second.
Been moved by Board Member Adams and seconded by Board Member Waddell. Any further discussion? And I might add, Mandy actually shared before she left as well that she was in favor with moving forward as this as well, so she just wasn't able to stay. So.
I wish we weren't so crunched on time, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And we knew that. I mean, I can't sit there and say it was anyone's fault. I knew that just as much as the rest of us a month ago when we were doing this. So.
And I can explain before the vote, I can explain just a little bit of that. We were looking at this from the standpoint of the possibility of this year or next year. We were quite confident it would be this year or next year. It was just a matter that we got just far enough into it to recognize, why wouldn't we do it this year? You know, I mean, why would we put it off at this particular point? And even looking at what the penalty would be of getting out still provides savings. I mean, if not this year, we're not going to lose any more money. You know, at the worst case scenario, will still be the same. At the worst case, I still believe we'll probably be ahead. But again, the issue is why put it off? And so that's why we're where we are at this particular time.
And we feel part of the obligation that we're sending the master contract and negotiating.
And they succeeded tremendously. I mean, from the first, I think Lance would say to echo that as well, that from the first plan that came out, the process of negotiations succeeded in making some really tremendous changes.
And that was the intent originally, the master contract.
That's right.
Which was to negotiate.
As John said, started all the way back even before we even started these last meetings. I mean, there's been changes made all along, and that was kind of, again, showing some of the advantages of doing this and the fact that they have a say-so in the plans.
Yeah.
So,
See, this would never happen with the state plan.
no.
You know, I mean, the state, you can't say, well, we want, we don't care what you want. You know, this is what you're being offered. So.
I agree.
I'm very happy to be with the state.
Yeah. And again, I feel like we've got to answer, we don't have more time, but I think the teachers both the teacher and the district negotiated, as we said, we will for benefits. And if that's where we're at, then
And the other piece is the insurance committee
it's formed.
will be formed, and we'll start that, because if there are any concerns that, again, details that were addressed, were identified, were addressed. If any details might come up in the next month, those are details that would be on that list to address with the committee working on it this next year. We have the capability now of making changes year to year to year.
And that's what I was going to ask
Yes.
you. That relationship would would still be.
Right.
Which gives us much more power than we've ever had
Right.
as a unit to negotiate what we need.
And a perfect example of that, just like John said, was the stuff with High Plains. I mean, that was brought up at the very last piece that they're doing that now. They really wanted that. Mike took that back to the Aetna reps, and they said, well, yeah, we have no problem with that at all. So they're going to form the partnership to allow us to continue on that as well.
Which
So.
they have through the other versions of the
Right.
motions they want to do that.
Yeah, it's really sad when it's just a matter of, sure, it's not a matter of any argument, just nobody asked. And, the issue with the state plan, no one is going to ask. We don't have that ability to do that and construct it the way we want, that part of it, so.
Well, it sounds like both teachers and the district negotiation team did their job. Felt we're ready to move on the motion.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want, are we going to have something, just a summation of where we're at? Because I know we've talked about what we're voting on, but I think, and I've seen it before, but I just want to make sure that we will send over to them a complete list of what we're approving.
I think Mike has that,
And,
doesn't he?
yeah, we will. It really is what was sent on Friday.
Okay.
It has the actual plans of 1 through 4, and then it has the breakdown of even the listing of what the employees would pay for the dependent, for the retiree, anything that they would have to pay, that's on that form. It identifies that. So I think we have given that to them at this point.
And I was confused a little that we were doing the entire package, not just the benefit piece, so.
Oh,
Bill indicates we've already had that resolved, so.
Yeah.
Very good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussion by board members and agenda requests. Looks like we have the Association of School Boards annual conference coming up on the 2nd and 3rd, so.
I don't know if anybody's been able to in the past years of attending. If there is anybody who, I think, last year I did attend, and Paul, until he just was not able to right at the end, but if anybody, please let us know so we can get you signed up to go if you have any intention.
And last year we had students competing, that was that
Yes, we did.
architect. And then this year we have a teacher, Monica Dryland,
Monica
who
Dryland.
we recognized for the grant. You heard about the last time, so it'd be great to have some representation.
So if anybody wants to take this and look at it, it's possibility of a Friday, a Saturday, is what might be possible.
Just
And then there's,
probably shootout weekend, I don't know.
when I leave,
Yeah.
what's we've got 2 leaks in Gym A at the high school.
Okay.
They've been persisting for at least a month, dripping onto the basketball court,
Gym A?
and also dripping into the bleachers.
Yeah, there was a bucket sitting there today when we came in for, that was
From
the first
the
time.
ceiling roof?
No, it's from the,
Air conditioning?
yeah, you got condensation coming off of a pipe. I guess my question is, number one, when we've got competition going on week to week with volleyball tournaments, so what ended up happening was the first week it would just accumulate, or the first time it would just accumulate, somebody'd come out there with a towel, wipe it up. Then the last couple times it's been like a Swiffer, I don't know what it is for sure, but the line judge puts it up against the door. I offered to do it for her, she said she'd handle it, but it's where competition is being performed.
Same location, too.
Yeah, and over again on the same floor that has been redone. And then I'm sure it has to be fixed by basketball season.
Well, if it's condensation, it'll be, I mean, if it is based on that,
It's
the
fixed today.
season will change.
It's fixed today.
Well, I don't know, there was a bucket in the bleacher, I saw that one, it wasn't on the
Now you're
floor.
gonna see though, we're gonna have
I'll follow up on
warmer
it.
temperature. Why? Why is that not
Yeah.
fixed? And then there were several complaints this week, this past weekend. There's a bathroom by the cafeteria. I didn't hear any guys complain, but it came from the women that several toilets do not work. They were not listed as out of order, and the smell and everything was pretty bad. So it's just odd that we host tournaments, but we don't address issues, which I think makes us look, or reflects us in very poor light by doing that. Then my last piece was going back to the Foundation for Educational Excellence. So this software where visitors can check in, do we have a policy for what would happen if somebody does not pass a background check and how we're going to handle that?
Yeah, we have a procedure for that.
Okay.
We had talked in our administrative team how that's to be done, and actually we identify we get the building principal to come forward and talk to them, and that's happened. It has happened.
I'm just curious.
But it's happened.
I said earlier, and I apologize.
No, good question.
But it's not, I think the times it happened wasn't because of anything that was a threat or a scare, just a matter that it can happen as far as the way the system ends up working on that. And you know, we can have parents who are not going to pass that. So it's still a matter of the administrator at the building to work through that situation with them.
I just got to
Yeah.
thinking about that as after that section was over, so
Yeah.
I thought I'd ask it.
Any other discussion or agenda requests?
Just maybe, we talked, maybe it's not immediate, but you had mentioned KISA might be worthwhile to review where we are. You talked about your meetings and all that, but where we are as a state, updated some actionable pieces that we should be considering in the future.
Right.
And maybe not right away, but
Well, we might, there are some good modules that are out there, like they're 5 to 7 minutes, and that's what our building's going to look at here the next month or so. But we might start the next couple of board meetings, work sessions with them. They really look at the outcomes, like what is post-secondary success? I think those might be worthy of,
Okay.
to take some time to look at. And what does
It'd probably
mean?
make it a lot easier going into, I mean, you need to be informed, not just one time, but probably
Yeah, ongoing.
several board meetings this year to give you that information.
so I know you've shared with us before the printed material
Right.
a little bit, but
But this is the key year of identifying the goals.
It might be something to just add to the agenda. And October is the month we'll be asking parents to do the perception survey, so the buildings will be reaching out to parents, so we'll be starting to collect some data through that.
I think it's great, so I think the scope of this is going to be pretty major.
Yep.
The board said, thank you.
You're good. Do we need an exec session, John? Okay. Nobody has anything else? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Well,
This year she's 16.
Is it shootout?